her, Dan, when I was at NBC about creating IT cosmetics. And she did have the high, I can't even do it, my voice is too low, but she had the high squeaky voice a little, but she's really leaning in now. And you're going to the podcast with Megyn, and she's gone next octave up. And the two of them have the weirdest dynamic. And so in this podcast, Megyn does her perfectly curated life thing, but she's allegedly wearing no makeup. Meanwhile, she's got like the perfect blowout, and like she's completely camera ready, except she didn't put eye makeup on. And she also is pretending that she's crying. And we did a zero in, like we zoomed in just to see. There isn't a tear. Dan, look at this. I invite the viewers to take a close-up look at this. Where's the tear? There's nothing there. Look, it's an actor's.
Meghan Markle looked like she was crying, but there weren't any real tears. Greg Gutfeld didn't hold back and roasted her like it was a royal comedy show, while Megyn Kelly dropped harsh truths like they were party favors. Even teamwork has its limits. So, was it just bad acting, emotional drama, or just another day on Meghan's podcast? Grab some popcorn because this solo takedown is one of the funniest things since Harry tried to balance royal duties.
Resent you. I resent England for sending your second-hand royalty to us, because now we got to deal with this. Yes, I just love the fact that they thought that they were going to be royalty here in America. So there was an assumption that and they were almost there. I mean, they were going to get gigs everywhere. They were Netflix, Hulu, Apple TV. Everybody was just going to give them millions and millions, and then they had to sit in a room with them and realize, my God, they're vacuous. He's a nice guy, apparently, but I mean, just thoroughly vacuous. She leads him around on a rope, and and it's like, that's it. That is the kind of sitcom I want to see.
I'll tell you the other thing.
It happened again. Meghan Markle cried, but only emotionally, not with actual tears. You know the kind where her voice sounds full of deep feeling, but her eyes stay completely dry. It's one of those dramatic moments that seem intense and heartfelt. Except her face didn't really show up for the performance. Next VOICAN, just like that, the Duchess of Discontent released another episode of her emotional, truth-filled podcast where everything feels raw, real, and perfectly on brand. She sniffled without really sniffing, blinked without any actual tears, and gave us the kind of crying you can't prove, but are supposed to believe. Meanwhile, the internet blew up kind of like Harry trying to remember what he's still.
He pulled out all the stops. Here is the intro of the episode.
Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, in her first ever podcast interview.
It's happening! It's not about the grandeur of a gesture. It's about I see you. I'm nurturing you and I see you so deeply, and I love being able to see your growth. Of all things, it's making me emotional.
I have full body chills right now.
For them to be able to look back and go, oh my gosh, she has loved us so much.
Why don't you like her?
Well, let me count the ways. There's nothing I like about her. She is a malignant narcissist who cannot get enough of herself while she simultaneously plays the victim. My castle's too small. The queen is mean to me. They won't let me call myself Her Royal Highness anymore, but I'm going to put it all over my stationery and on the gifts that I give to my friends, while she never stops whining. And at the same time, and I'm getting all worked up, I'm a founder. I'm over it. She's not important. She married for money. It's very clear she bagged the elephant. She was thrilled she became a quote.
By now, the world is pretty used to Meghan's emotional podcast talks. After all, what's a podcast without turning vulnerability into a spotlight? But this time, the drama wasn't just shared, it was dressed up fancy, like it came with gold flakes, lavender sprinkles, and was delivered by a wellness coach in Montecito. Meghan served up her sad story for everyone to eat up, but not everyone could swallow it. Some people.
Meghan Markle is back with another attempt at relevance, this time her upcoming Netflix series with Love, Meghan. Roll it, Agnes. Of course it's the first time, because you never do it. You can actually tell how phony someone is when they tell you how authentic they are. Obviously, this will crash and burn like all of our other poorly planned pet projects, because despite her pseudo-British fame, people over here roundly reject this kind of phony.
Greg Gutfeld, the guy who thinks late-night comedy should hit you with a joke and then laugh at the damage. When he heard Meghan's podcast, He grabbed his sarcasm and went all in, with the grace of a wrecking ball crashing a yoga class. He basically accused her of faking it more than fakes a luxury vacation. Greg didn't need experts or royal facts. Just his usual mix of jokes, attitude, and a bit of chaos. To him, Meghan's emotional podcast was like a cheese grater trying out for Broadway loud, over the top, and kind of painful. He tore into her like she woke him up from a nap to give a TED talk on being morally superior. He didn't just criticize, he went full blast. Subtle, not a chance. To Greg, the whole thing felt like a school play where the lead forgot her lines but pretended crying would fix it. He didn't care if she cried for real, he just wanted her acting to at least try. And because Greg lives on sarcasm and Red Bull, he pointed out the irony. Meghan says she's been silenced, yet she has a podcast, a Netflix deal, and more screen time than most world leaders. His message: if this is her being quiet, we're scared to hear what she sounds like when she really speaks up. You can't call it a struggle while recording your emotional breakdown in HD with music and a full editing crew.
Embarrass family for fun? Now is tell-alls #1. It's true. Prince Harry's book has now become the fastest selling non-fiction book in the history of the UK, selling 400,000 copies on Tuesday. It's the only book to ever sell more copies on its first day than Harry Potter, which also was a work of fiction. Anyway, the book also reveals a whole bunch of weird crap. Text message fight between Meghan and Kate. How does a husband get that? And why does he care? Also, how Prince Charles used to do headstands in his underwear every day to alleviate injuries from polo. Not polio. Polo.
But Greg didn't stop at teasing Meghan's tearless breakdown. He went even further, joking that her podcast could be renamed a masterclass in manipulation, with episodes like How to Cry Without Crying, The Art of Emotional Suggestion, and Finding Your Voice While Swimming in Millions. His commentary turned into a full roast medium rare. With a big side of sarcasm, he also pointed out how odd it is to use fake-looking tears as a way to dodge criticism. After all, it's tough to feel bad for someone when the crying never really happens. It's like being emotionally mugged by a mime. What you see doesn't match what you hear. You're left wondering, wait, did she just fake cry again? While Greg was hurling comedic jabs at Meghan's royal image, someone else was preparing a more serious takedown, Megyn Kelly. If Greg is the class clown, Meghan is the tough prosecutor, sharp, serious, and totally unfazed by emotional theatrics. Where Greg mocks, Meghan dice. She doesn't need jokes, just facts and a sharp delivery. And she definitely had opinions. Her style wasn't about laughing at Meghan's performance. It was about pulling apart the entire strategy behind it. Like a hawk locking onto its target, Meghan wasn't interested in the drama. She was
to People magazine. She says she loves building this safe haven and show with her daughter. And she says, being able to have my own little girl, as I've spent so much of my life championing the rights of girls and women, knowing this is something that I can create in front of my daughter and teach her what it's like to be a working mom. This is not what it's like to be a working mom. What it's like to be a working mom is to come downstairs with no makeup on. You're barely out of your pajamas, and you're like, did you eat? Let's go. You're late. Get your backpack. Come on. If you do this again, I'm not bringing it to you at school. Let's go. Good. Right? Grab anything. Doesn't matter what the sugar content is. This is so.
And Megyn Kelly's conclusion. Meghan Markle was using emotion as a tool. These weren't real tears, they were a way to control the story. Meghan broke it down like a courtroom case. Her tone wasn't, oh please. It was more like, let's expose the strategy behind this. She explained how Meghan often brings out emotional stories right when public criticism starts building. In Meghan's view, this isn't vulnerability, it's a well-timed emotional grenade. She even pointed out a pattern. Whenever things heat up, Meghan shares another sad story, reopens another wound, and stages another breakdown. But here's the thing, they're never raw or messy. They're always polished, perfectly timed, and podcast. It's not real emotional chaos, it's sadness. That's been carefully edited and filtered by a brand team. Meghan also questioned Meghan's credibility. Why do her stories change slightly depending on where she tells them? Why do serious claims come without proof? Why are the most emotional moments built on vague feelings instead of solid facts? For Meghan, it wasn't just the dry eyes that were the problem, it was the shifting stories. You can fake a cry, sure. But when you start faking the whole story, that's where the real damage is done. Next.
Who are planning to come and hijack the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. And I know you find them a constant source of hilarity as well. They don't ever intend to make us laugh. They just make us laugh through their
I gotta
absurdity.
tell you, I love that her woke cartoon on Netflix got canceled. There's a great story behind this. The cartoon is called Pearl. It's about a coming of age, right? Which is a code word for nauseating, self-involved tripe. So what happened is, this is my favorite part. So it's like a young girl's rise in social justice, and you know who Meghan's cartoon is inspired by? Meghan. She made the cartoon. It's inspired by her. Which is amazing, but that tells you everything. That in the woke world, it is not actually about helping people. It's a disguise. It's a virtue signal that helps you, that makes you look good.
Right.
And there's perfect evidence of this because they never help anybody but
Gutfeld's jokes made people laugh. Megyn Kelly's analysis made them think. It wasn't just about Meghan crying, it was about what it means when someone uses emotion in such a calculated way. If you pretend to cry too many times, people stop believing you, even if you're telling the truth later. Meghan often forgets to look like she's crying. She pauses for drama, looking deeply emotional in a perfectly lit studio, with a sound engineer just a few feet away. It's not that people can't be emotional on camera. Of course they can. But when everything feels so rehearsed, even your sad face seems sponsored, people start to question it. That's exactly what Gutfeld and Kelly are doing. They're very different people, but they agree on one thing. They can't stand fake. And to them, there's something off about a duchess who cries without tears, talks about pain but avoids responsibility, and claims to be being seen and heard everywhere. And then there's the public reaction. Let's just say Meghan didn't get much praise for her performance. The internet lit up with memes, fast, brutal, and everywhere. Like seagulls diving for a sandwich at the beach.
Insecure person I have seen in the public eye in a long time. That is why everything had to be perfectly curated. Who the hell picks fucking berries in a white cashmere blouse and white pants? Literally no one on earth does that. And like this garden, which is like the most over the top, like we're all supposed to go, Maureen, to make our breakfast in the morning out to our gardens and pick our berries, our raspberries, our strawberries, our blueberries, our snozberries, and cut our mint, and then cut our flowers that are edible. But don't worry, she's a woman of the people. You can grow those just on your windowsill at home.
Sure.
In New York, your edible flowers.
And don't forget your local beekeeper.
Yeah.
Your local beekeeper.
Oh yeah, because she has a bee hive, which she goes to. That's how they open the whole series with her bees. And like, don't worry, if you don't have this, just go to your local beekeeper. Clearly we're living in...
People analyzed Meghan's podcast clip like it was the Zapruder film. Was that a tear? Nope, just a camera light. Was that a sniffle? No, just the producer coughing. Soon, it wasn't about what she said, but how she said it. Because when emotion is your main product, even small slip-ups can break the whole illusion. And Meghan's emotional style follows a clear formula. Play the victim, appear vulnerable, and tell just vague enough stories to keep things flexible. It's all very feel sorry for me, but only during business hours. And don't forget to check out her latest brand deal while you're at it. Meanwhile, Greg Gutfeld probably printed out screenshots of the podcast and hung them in his studio with the label Comedy Gold. And Meghan Kelly, she probably filed it under Exhibits A through Z in her growing case of why Meghan isn't credible. T's pretty amazing that two people from totally different media styles, one full of jokes, the other all facts and critique, watched the same podcast and both picked up on the same thing. Something didn't feel right. No real tears, no real mess. Just perfectly polished, brand-approved emotions. Designer label sadness. Wrapped in royal vibes.
His heart is even more beautiful.
I love that your eyes are sparkling right now.
Oh.
Oh my God. Dan, I threw up in my mouth.
Yes. Yes.
Dan, when you do interviews on your show, do you do the Jamie Kern Lima reactions? Yes. Oh my God, there's something wrong with her. What? Wow, who communicates like that? She's the only thing saving Meghan Markle, because between the two, she's even weirder. But Meghan Markle, This is a tell. Okay, this is a tell. It's the same way on Valentine's Day. You see people post like, my rock, my life partner, the person who saved me. Guarantee that guy is cheating on her.
Greg Gutfeld caught on right away like watching a bad soap opera where the main character just changes outfits and retells the same trauma with different lighting. Meanwhile, Megyn Kelly, the analyst, broke down the whole performance. She noticed Meghan's story changes a little depending on the platform. On Spotify, she's the weeping duchess, finding her voice. On Netflix, she's the silenced revolutionary, still finding her voice. And on fancy conferences, she's surprised she's still finding her voice. At this point, that voice must be hiding somewhere like Narnia, but both Greg and Meghan usually don't agree on much besides needing air to breathe. Smelled something fishy in this emotional replay. It's like Groundhog Day, starring Meghan Markle, with the same stories and recycled feelings. Every time Meghan appears, the script shifts a bit, changing the villain, the setting, even Harry's facial expressions, but the main story never changes. Meghan's always the misunderstood heroine, perfectly lit, with some mysterious allergy to real tears. But isn't that just the Meghan Markle experience now? The Duchess of emotional subtlety. You can't criticize her without being called cruel. You can't doubt her without being called sexist. And you definitely can't laugh. Because then you're part of the problem, even when she cries without actually crying. In a multi-million-dollar studio.
And then there was that time that Harry suffered frostbite on his penis from a trip to the North Pole. Sure he didn't get that from Meghan? Yeah. It's contagious, frostbite. I think. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. The best part, Harry's book is titled Spare, which comes from Harry's claim that he was bred only to offer spare organs to Prince William. I know, although they're both out of luck generating hair plugs.
Maybe the real lesson isn't that Meghan faked tears. Maybe she's just become a performance artist without realizing the show is already over. The more she tries to seem real, the more she comes off as fake. And no amount of podcast music or effects can hide the fact that when both Greg Gutfeld and Megyn Kelly call her out, one with jokes, the other with facts, you might want to ask if the Emperor's New podcast really has any real emotions at all. Just when you think the drama can't get any bigger, Meghan drops another big, emotional story on a platform made for millions to hear. If you want privacy, apparently the best way is to share everything on Spotify with sound effects, music, and a story that feels.
She married Harry. The press was wonderful for her. The British people loved Harry, and they were delighted to see him so happy and in love, and she was playing the role of demure, supportive partner to a T. I mean, very well. It wasn't until she started to make her positions clear and continuously play the victim from the palace that people started to get a feel of who she really was, and then the public opinion turned, and so
Greg Gutfeld caught on right away like watching a bad soap opera where the main character just changes outfits and retells the same trauma with different lighting. Meanwhile, Megyn Kelly, the analyst, broke down the whole performance. She noticed Meghan's story changes a little depending on the platform. On Spotify, she's the weeping duchess, finding her voice. On Netflix, she's the silenced revolutionary, still finding her voice. And on fancy conferences, she's surprised she's still finding her voice. At this point, that voice must be hiding somewhere like Narnia, but both Greg and Meghan usually don't agree on much besides needing air to breathe. Smelled something fishy in this emotional replay. It's like Groundhog Day, starring Meghan Markle, with the same stories and recycled feelings. Every time Meghan appears, the script shifts a bit, changing the villain, the setting, even Harry's facial expressions, but the main story never changes. Meghan's always the misunderstood heroine, perfectly lit, with some mysterious allergy to real tears. But isn't that just the Meghan Markle experience now? The Duchess of emotional subtlety. You can't criticize her without being called cruel. You can't doubt her without being called sexist. And you definitely can't laugh. Because then you're part of the problem, even when she cries without actually crying. In a multi-million-dollar studio.